Welcome to Thor's Hammer, brought to you by BikeFans.com. I'm Viking Bob, and I'm sitting in my basement man cave, surrounded by tons of Viking stuff, drinking a Long Island iced tea. Tonight we have a very special guest, which we'll introduce in a while. But first I want to introduce my partners here. Send it down to Georgia. Georgia Vike, how you doing tonight, buddy?
As always, I'm living the dream, Bob. Sitting down here drinking another scrumptious, like 0.000001% Miller 64. Get myself motivated to get the honey-do list again done again tomorrow for the wife. Happy wife, happy life. Same shit, different day. OBM, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, brother. Doing well. Glad to hear everything in Georgia's good, and Boston and Minneapolis as well. I gotta say, it was a gorgeous day in the Valley of the Sun here, about 75 degrees, and just enjoying myself a nice Jack Daniels on the rocks.
Nice. How's that going for you?
You know what? I gotta say, it's pretty damn tasty. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty damn tasty. And if I wasn't on this crazy ass diet, that bottle might be gone by the end of the night. It'd get ugly. Fast. Real fast.
Alrighty, and the fourth member of our team hails from Minnesota. As always, Magic Mike Olson.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back again. Can't wait to see what you clowns throw at me as far as curveballs and what I got to do to get this show going. Tonight, I'm keeping it, a little heavier. I don't drink that 64 calories shit. I'm drinking a Flat Earth Brewing Cygnus X1 Porter brewed straight out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and it's going down pretty good. So glad to be here.
Another fictitious name that you're coming up with.
I was at the liquor store the other day, and I'm thinking, can I find the most complicated name brew here, just so I can get Georgia Vite to call me out on what I'm drinking?
Is that the bareback, double back, triple back, three ply cement, backer board, double back?
I saw something called a triple hump camel bump that I was gonna get, but I thought I might get a few too many jokes with that.
That's my ex-girlfriend's nickname.
Isn't that a stout?
Trip nips. Yeah, we love her.
Well, I'll be signing off for the balance of the show for now. I got a lot of work to do to make sure you guys stay in line.
Crack that whip there. We got the shot callers on tonight, so we got a line. We get shocked real quick. People at home, you know what happened.
There ain't no time for foreplay, Bob. Let's roll.
All righty. First off, I want to say that I heard that OBM hunted down Lockstar and got paid. The guy reminded me of the movie, Better Off Dead.
You know what, Lockstar?
My $2.
Lockstar, I know you're listening. I just want to say, Lockstar, thanks for manning up. And you know what? You didn't even buy me beer because of this crazy diet. I can't drink beer. So you know what you did buy? You are going to buy me a new headset for this podcast. So thank you for your contribution. I appreciate it, brother.
No.
Thank you too,
we appreciate it. We appreciate
it. Yes. Amen, Bob. Thank you, Locke.
All right, moving along. We're going to roll into our first segment, which we entitled Odin's Eye. Basically, we talk about the previous game and the upcoming game. And we're going to start talking about last week's game first. But I'm going to throw it to Georgia Vike first. Georgia Vike, want to break down last week's game?
I'll try to break it down. Basically, first quarter, we get our asses kicked. Second quarter, we came back. Third quarter, hey, we came on top. Fourth quarter, blah, game over. No,
that's awesome.
That's the way we roll around here. Last week's game, it started off as like, are you kidding me? As Detroit, is going up and down the field on us. It seemed like they're moving the ball at will in the first quarter there. Made some good adjustments. Zimmer did, and then basically locked those guys down after that. First quarter, I think they scored 14 points, and after that, we allowed 5 points, and actually 2 of those 5 points were an intentional safety. Our offense, I'm still scared as hell. Teddy had a great game passing the ball. It's probably the best game I've seen him besides the Falcons game last year throwing the football. He did well doing it, but Peterson in that offensive line that we have out there right now scares the hell out of me. Last week I brought up basically, does Peterson help us or hurt us when he's out there? And I'm still wondering that, because when he had Jerick McKinnon in the backfield, that opened up our passing game a lot. That Teddy was allowed a little bit more time to throw the ball. He was finding open receivers. When Adrian was in there, he had for the game. I posted this on our thread last week. He had 98 total yards rushing on 19 carries. Okay, he had 3 rushes, one for 12, one for 75, and one for 15. That went for 102 yards. Okay, but he had 16 carries and went for a net -4 yards. That's bad. If it wasn't for that 75-yard carry he had, we're looking at some pretty piss poor stats, to be honest with you.
What do you think about this? When the Vikings have Peterson in the backfield, the opponents are going to assume it's going to be a run because most of the time he comes out of a pass. So there are not that many holes there for him to hit. Now, if they bring in McKinnon, who is normally a third down back, who drops out of the backfield for a little screen pass, they think pass. So the linebackers drop back more. So if they hand off to him, there's more holes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a catch-22 for the Vikings.
So
that's how I see it.
So is Adrian helping us or hurting us?
He's helping us on the running game when he busts one, but him being back there, the linebackers crowd the line, which helps Teddy going deeper. There's not that many linebackers dropping back in coverage.
So overall as a team, Bob, not to get into something for like upcoming weeks, I'm saying last week, would you rather have Adrian Peterson in the backfield or Jerick McKinnon in the backfield with the offensive weapons that we have?
You know what? I don't think there's one honest answer you can give. I think it's a great combination to have both, because if you only had one, teams will defend against that a certain way. When you have both, they have to keep mixing it up as well.
Mm-hmm. You look at it. I'm the big guy that's been crucifying our offensive line week after week after week after week. The breakdown was okay. Look at the 19 carries Adrian had this past week. 7 of them went to the left. Okay, he had a long of 12 yards of rushing to the left. He ended up with 2 yards rushing to the left. He had 4 of them for a loss. 7 up the middle, a long of 2. He had 2 for a loss, 0 yards up the middle. He had 5 rushes to the right, 1 of 75 and 1 of 15. He ended up with 96 yards. He had 0 for a loss. Is the right side of our line good, or was the left side of Detroit's defense terrible? Where's the angle on this?
I don't think there is one, because I think every week a different team you play against, those numbers will be different.
Oh, OBM, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, you make a lot of good points, and yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Adrian Peterson dilemma here, whether he's helping, hurting, or if McKinnon should see more carries. What I did like, McKinnon did see some more carries last week, so that was nice to see. AP, you're right. I mean, it seems like he's hesitating maybe a little bit in the backfield, not hitting that hole quite as quick as maybe he could. And maybe that's some of the issue. But regardless, it's a big win. I mean, we've swept Detroit, so I'm excited about that. And, as you noted, Bridgewater looked pretty solid. I mean, there's not a whole lot to complain about here. The defense looks spectacular. Kendricks looks like he's going to be, possibly the rookie of the year. If he's not, I don't know who's playing better than that guy right now as a rookie. There's still some question marks, obviously. I mean, you got to kind of look at Kyle Rudolph and go, what's going on with this guy? I mean, yeah, he's getting touchdown, though. He's got about 3 or 4 touchdowns now, but I really thought this was going to be a guy who was going to break out this year and be a 60 catch, 10 touchdown, 800 yard, 900 yard tight end. It just seems like he's not maybe quite back, quite healthy. So it seems like we're missing something there. And then, I just thought the Vikings as a whole, they defensively, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they played excellent. And not a whole lot to complain about. I like what I like what I saw from Bridgewater. We've been kind of critical of him at times. and kind of question what's going on with Norv Turner and whatnot. But
rightfully so. That's our job.
exactly, and you know, you look at this, guys. We're sitting in the division. If we win this next game, which would be huge, this is a must-win game again. I know we keep talking about must-win games, and it's early in the season, but to be 3-0 in the division would be huge. So I'm hoping that we build on what happened last week. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be the Bears always seem to play us tough and whatnot. So I'm just looking for some more improvement. I love what we're doing with Diggs. The running game, you know, AP, yeah, he broke the 75-yarder. The other 18 carries, 23 yards. That was kind of ugly, but I think we're starting to turn a corner here, and a win this week could be huge for us. What do y'all think?
I think we have to win this week. Get that monkey off the back, first of all. That's basically how I see it. We've been, I think it's like 2-14-1 in our last 17 road games in our division. We have to win. That's how I
would agree with you. Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, like we said, you know, if they win this game, they're 3-0, I believe, in the conference. And, you know, all of a sudden now you're starting to look forward to that Green Bay game, and you never know what can happen there. So I think it's exciting, and hopefully we just kind of keep building from this and winning games. That's the key to it all.
Alrighty, at this time, I want to introduce our guest to the board this week. Everybody here knows him. We wouldn't be here without him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Moore. Tom, welcome aboard.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys having me tonight.
It's our pleasure.
Well, I got to tell you, you guys got me in an interesting position as you guys lay back and you take down your alcoholic beverages. I'm sitting here in what I would call monsooning Texas right now, taking this from the car of the parking lot, and instead of having that alcoholic drink I was looking for, I ended up getting a carbonated beverage with no carbonation and a cold hot dog. So I think you guys are living better than me.
Oh, yeah, we're living the dream, like Georgia Pike says.
Amen. You know it.
What's going on with these car interviews? Wasn't Cactor in his car last week? Now we got Tom in the car? I mean, is this a trend we're seeing here? What's going on?
I figured you'd rather hear me in the car than hear the band playing in the background.
I'm starting to think people are hiding to be interviewed on a show. They're
there you go.
Ashamed of us.
Hey,
right,
can I
Tom,
chime in on the Peterson question? Can I chime in real quick?
Absolutely. Tom, I was just about to ask you your thoughts on the past game, so feel free.
Well, let me start with Peterson. I've seen him a couple times, in the passing game. He actually looks pretty fluid and effective in the passing game, and all of us expected he couldn't catch. And we had the benefit, Mike and I, to see him in training camp a couple of years. He can catch. And the key is just for him to get it secure. And once he does that, he's just a running back. And I think he's dangerous in the open field. And everybody's talking about the dancing around that he does, and he has. But, a lot of things that I see in the film and I wonder about Peterson is he's just not getting any blocking. A lot of times you can't blame a guy for dancing when a guy's 2 yards in the backfield. And, one of the things that you guys can probably answer better than me is when you see him to the right side, he's always been a right side runner. I mean, he feels comfortable with Phil Lodeholt over there from Oklahoma. And I think that's his strength is running to that side. So, I'm not as surprised he's not as effective to the left, but, we've seen this for a while with this offensive line, whether it be in this regime or with, back when we had Leslie Frazier and even Brad Childress I always called it a fist fight in a phone booth when they try to run right into the teeth of the defense with 9 men in the box or 8 men in the box, it's hard to find a hole sometimes. And especially with this line that's still trying to come together and gel with some new pieces to it, I think that's also contributing a bit.
I think you're onto something here, Tom, because I've been watching it, and it's week after week. I'm watching him dance back there, and obviously we know he has no blocking up front, but the numbers, it's like I was saying to the right. How come if he only the least amount of yards he had, or at least amount of rushes, I should say, he had that last week was 5 rushes to the right. If that's his strength, how come they're not going there more often? He ran 5 times for 102 yards to the right. He ended up, with 98 yards. Well, how come they don't go to that more often?
It's funny that you say that because, as fans, we always think about things. When you think about the last couple of years before, Norv came in, we said, where are the slant patterns? We never saw them under Bill Musgrave. And so that tends to work. And I always wonder, do the fans really understand more what's going on with the coaches? And, even go to Cordero Patterson. We all know he can run out of the backfield. He did it in college at Tennessee for a year and before that in his junior college days. But, we use him a couple times here. It's effective. We don't use it again. We try him on a reverse. It's very effective. We don't use it again. And so, I really can't answer that question. I often wonder, the benefit that a lot of people don't see with the Brian Robinson on our team is he's taught to stay home. And the reason he doesn't have the big sack numbers is twofold. One, you've got predominantly right-handed quarterbacks. They can see him coming. But more importantly, if you watch him play, one of the first things he's been asked to do in previous years is contain the run. So probably what you have to look at is what have you got on that left side in the opposing defense? Is it something that you could run at or not? But I'll tell you what, based upon the success I've seen, I'd run more to the right and give it a shot. If we're going to commit to the run anyway, let's spend more time committing to the right.
I agree with you totally on that. I really do, because it seems to be working and working and working and working. I don't know if they're trying to fool someone to think that we're going to do something different, and every time they do something different, they try to fool somebody. They're not doing anything with it. So I'm in total agreement with you that why don't they just keep running the ball to the right?
And you know what's funny about it, guys? I mean, think about it whenever you see a third one, or for God's sakes, if we go for a fourth and one, it's usually the same play. It's right up the gut, and when we don't make it, it's because there's penetration up the center. So we've got, Joe Berger in there, I mean, he's a great utility backup, but, as a starting center, we wouldn't have made the trade with Gerald Hodges to get some more talent in here if we thought he was going to hold up for the whole year. So, it's that same thing is, don't get too cute with plays, but at some point in time, don't give them exactly what they're expecting.
All right, so Tom, from that, two-part question for you. What have you heard about Sully and the two guys that we traded for in the offseason, Surlis and Easton? Are they ready to contribute anytime soon, or is that a next year thing?
I think, I haven't heard much about Sullivan other than the typical, which is there are concerns about his longevity. It's not the first time he's had a season-ending injury. And what's always interesting with him is he gets injured, you hear a 4 to 6 week time frame, and then he always seems to get a setback that ends for the season. So he signed for 2 more years. So, clearly he is, an upgrade from what we have with Berger. But again, you have to be concerned about that. And it may be time if, the acquisition we had from San Francisco, if we're not in a space to where that's the answer, you may be looking at, a second round draft choice or something in free agency next year to make sure we're solid. As far as the new guys on the roster, I frankly haven't heard. I haven't heard anything about it. And, a lot like, Josh Freeman that came in a few years ago, it's hard to just roll into a new offense. You've got different schemes. You don't know if they came from a man blocking scheme or a zone blocking scheme. And so it's really about once their comfort level's there, they activate them. And usually with the offensive line, these coaches know whether somebody's capable of going on the field now or not. I think the perfect example is a David Yankee. All of us had high hopes for David Yankee, and, when are we going to get him on the field? And he's deactivated for almost every game. Now he's sitting on the practice squad. When Mike and I were at camp, we watched him pretty closely the last couple of years, and you wouldn't want to put him on the field. He plays fairly soft. He does not hold the point very well. And so to answer your question is we'd have to see those guys in practice to see, are they picking up the schemes, and can they hold off a defensive lineman so they don't get the quarterback, frankly, Teddy Bridgewater, killed?
All right, good reply. Guys, you have anything else on this past game?
I want to ask you, get back, Tom, get back to the Josh Freeman thing real quick. Is he quarterback in the game you're at right now?
No, I think he'd be downgrade if he were. Josh, I'll tell you what, Josh Freeman's really interesting because he does have talent. What fell apart in him, I don't know, because, everybody remembers the Giant game in that. And I think the crazy thing is you can, be off with your receivers. You can miss the timing. But there are not too many 9-foot receivers in the league, so you usually don't sail past like that. That's stuff that quarterbacks, they all start to cultivate at about 7th grade, 8th grade, things like that. They've done that a million times. I don't know what it was, but he fell straight downhill. He's had a couple of chances and never came back. So you never know. A lot of it tends to be between the ears. Even a Christian Ponder had some physical skills, but you can see, he struggled here, went to Oakland, couldn't make that squad, and then really never even got a sniff from anybody else. And sometimes it's what gets in your head that can end your career.
Well, I think he killed a couple people in the upper deck that game, too.
Oh, yeah. It's not good when you need liability insurance when you walk into an NFL stadium.
There's very few times I was watching the game. I was on the road when that game was going on. I was literally sitting in the hotel room, and I don't get too animated during games anymore. I used to years ago, and I literally screamed, "What the F," at the top of my lungs in a hotel room. And I do apologize to the people, 3 floors around me, because that's the only time in my life I've ever gotten that pissed off at a game was actually that Giants game and Freeman was playing.
So you
had one thing that's interesting about. Yeah, well, I was going to say one of the interesting things about the sailing passes, and you guys should comment on this, is when Teddy's off, Teddy seems to sail them high, and when he does, it's because he doesn't follow through. It's almost like he's trying to float them. It's almost like he's trying to aim them. And the more confident he looks, the better pocket he's got around him, and this is going to be the case for any quarterback. He does step in, and that's when his passes are on target. So when you start seeing him floating, you're going to look at his feet and you're going to realize he's not following through.
Last year, one thing I noticed with Teddy, though, even beyond the 5 weeks in the stats, is you can see I hadn't seen a player like that in a Vikings uniform, with the exception of the Favre year, that threw a ball and it looks like just like a missile coming out of his hands, like a laser. He just flicked his wrist, something was bam. He was on, and I don't think he's lost anything. I just think that we need to get back to something like that, or if he just doesn't have the confidence, or if it's the receivers. What is it? Because he can flick his wrist and make a hell of a pass in some very tight windows. Would you guys see anything in training camp that would say that he's gone away from that, or are they changing something, or what is it?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, one of the things they have to do with these quarterbacks in camp, and that's why a lot of times you see a fourth quarterback knowing he's not going to make it, which is what the Vikings had. They got to take some reps off these guys so they don't lose the arm strength just like a pitcher. He doesn't look any different in camp, quite frankly. He looks almost too relaxed at times. And I think that's when his ball starts to get away from him. He's capable. I think the best thing that we have with a Teddy Bridgewater and why he's encouraging to me is his willingness to sit in that pocket. I mean, for years we've been talking about, and you can go with Tavares Jackson or Sage Rosenfeld, they did not go through the progressions, and they did not find the second and third and fourth receivers. He'll do that. He'll hang almost to a fault. Sometimes he's hanging onto that ball and he gets sacked. But you got to appreciate he is, in fact, looking to get the ball downfield before he's ever thinking to run. So I think it's just a matter of, here's a guy in his second year in the NFL. They're probably got some defenses throwing some different things at him. He just hasn't seen it all yet.
I agree with that. He wasn't like Tannehill this week, who had like 30 seconds to throw the ball and was looking for the sack for 28 seconds of that. I don't know if any of you saw that, but it's waiting for the sack. And yeah, I will give him that. Yeah, he is. He's alert. He knows what's going on, and he will take his time to do it. Unlike the Culpepper, stare the one guy down as he's running his entire route. So,
And one thing I will tell you guys that you're going to be interested about, you talk about the passing game, and we had a chance to interview all the receivers that are on the squad, all 6 of them. And this is a pretty tight group, including Cordell Patterson. They hang together, they do things together, they play a lot of practical jokes on each other, and they actually kind of cozied up to VikeFans.com. They got used to us, and they look forward to seeing us. And I think that camaraderie has really helped the passing games, because this is not about Mike Wallace wanting to be the number one guy. I got to get all the balls. These guys are actually happy for each other when they do well. And I think that makes a big difference. And, from a Teddy Bridgewater standpoint, obviously the comments about Kyle Rudolph, he's an enigma to me, because when you see him in person, he is an enormous man. I mean, he's one of those guys to where he's 6'6" and about 250 or 260, and that's a natural body weight. There's nothing built up there. He should be a target that you see every time, but for whatever reason, either Teddy's not seeing him, he's not getting open, or he doesn't trust him. And if you remember last year, he had a lot of success with Chase Ford. So all this comes down to is, who is your quarterback comfortable with? Ponder was comfortable with Rudolph, and I don't think that Teddy's yet comfortable with Rudolph.
I wouldn't be comfortable with Rudolph, though, either, because you look at it sometimes, because he's got like the Mike Wallace thing going over. There could be a pass right in his wheelhouse. Then all of a sudden, he drops the ball. And this week, he came up with a great catch in the end zone for that touchdown. Who is Kyle Rudolph?
Yeah. And that's the funny thing. We saw him in the Pro Bowl. In the Pro Bowl, he looked fantastic. He could go downfield. He could run the seam routes. And he's got all the talent in the world. I don't think this is all Rudolph. I think a lot of this is, a quarterback's always going to have a favorite receiver. And for Teddy, it was Charles Johnson last year. Clearly, Teddy Bridgewater feels really comfortable with Stephon Diggs and Mike Wallace right now.
Agreed. I think the first year success of Rudolph and Patterson going to the Pro Bowl kind of hurt them too, because maybe they thought it was just too easy for now and didn't put in the hard work. And I'm not seeing the hard work from Cordero. I don't know how hard worked Rudolph does, but it seems like he's often injured.
Yeah, I mean, we can tell you on Rudolph works hard, and Patterson actually works really hard. He looked good in camp. He was able to get some separation on the shorter routes, where he struggles with the long routes because he tries to outrace everybody. And even Terrence Newman had no problem keeping up with him. And so he just hasn't figured that out. So it's not for lack of work. It's almost as though he does not listen to the coaching well enough. And I think that's what's got him sitting down in the sixth spot where he is. One of the things I'd like to see, though, is if you kind of look at the stats, you guys got the stats better than I do. You got Rhett Ellison almost putting as much as Kyle Rudolph on the field, and Rhett's just a blocker. He's not going to be anything dangerous downfield. I'd love to see what would happen if you put Chase Ford in there, at least for a couple of series, see if he gets a better camaraderie with Teddy.
I'd love to see more of Mike Hall Pruitt.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, let's go forward to the upcoming game. Chicago. I'm going to throw out the OBM, our stat man. OBM, fire away, buddy. What's your thoughts on the upcoming game against the Bears?
You know what, guys, like we kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, this is a big game for the Vikings. They can get to 3-0 in the conference. That'd be huge for them. But one stat that really, really stands out to me, and I'm curious to see if any of you guys know this stat, because when I saw this, I about fell over. The last 14 trips to Chicago. Do you know what our record is in the Windy City? Anyone want to take a guess? The last 14 games in Chicago? Anyone? Tom, what do you think?
I'm gonna say it's either gonna be 1-13 or excuse me 1-13 or 2-12.
You are correct, sir. 1-13. We are 1-13 in Chicago in the last 14 years. I mean, that is absolutely maybe the most disgusting stat I've ever read. I mean, how can we be 1-13? And I don't know. I'm guessing the win we had was probably when we had Brett Favre. I'm just going out on a limb there, but that's something that, again, we have not won 3 road games in a row since 2012. So that shows you how big this game is and how important it is for the Vikings. The Vikings need to come out. I think Bridgewater, that defense of Chicago, Jared Allen's gone. They're bringing in some of these newer, younger guys, Pernell McPhee, a couple other guys, but this is a game that we need to win. If you want to go to the playoffs, you need to beat some of these bad teams. And right now, Chicago is a very, very, very bad team. Jay Cutler, for whatever reason, we all hate the guy. The guy just, for whatever reason, plays well against the Vikings. I don't get it. But I think the big thing here is, we're going to have to keep our pass rush up. Which we did last week against Stafford. We're going to have to keep that going. And then the next big thing is, can we shut down Alshon Jeffrey and Martellus Bennett? We have someone that can cover both those guys. I mean, Xavier Rhodes, is he going to be able to step up a little bit this week? That's going to be a challenge for him, I think, this week. The second big thing that I think we're going to have to do, we're going to have to get at Cutler. We're going to have to hit that guy. I don't care what we do, but he's one of those guys, if we can just rattle him a little bit, it makes a huge difference in how the rest of that game could play out. So I think if we can get the Cutler and contain Jeffrey and Bennett and just keep kind of doing what we're doing, and Bridgewater seems to be progressing now, as Tom said, I think this is a game the Vikings should win and will win. And again, the last thing I'll say, it's a road game. We cannot turn the ball over. And that is one thing we've been doing a better job of these last 3-4 games. We're not turning the ball over as often. Teddy's not throwing the interception. So it seems like we're taking better care of the football, and that's something that is going to have to continue this week if we're going to continue to win and ride this winning streak. So, GV, thoughts, buddy?
Well, this week, I've got a lot of thoughts. I really think of this week is, that we should win this game, but at the same time, it's a division game, and it's always very difficult to win on the road. There are two teams that face each other twice a year. We know a lot about each other, so it's really no surprise tactics, and they're really, unless you're the Green Bay Packers right now with the talent they have in their squad, it's a coin flip. And I think we should win. I think we should win just to kind of prove that we belong in the playoff race, the wild card chase. But if we don't win this week, I'm not going to jinx this again, but if we don't win this week, then we have some serious deficiencies.
I got to agree. I think this is a game we should win, will win, have to win, however you want to word it. I think watching the team come back from the game last week, losing 17-3, and then basically slamming the door on Detroit, and all the changes they made on defense to get after Stafford and basically kill the guy. You got to love it. So obviously the coaching is making adjustments, unlike previous regimes. This is a great time to be a Vikings fan watching the game. No matter what the score is, they can come back from it. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater probably played his best game in a long time. I know it's best game this year. Might be his career as a Viking. Stephon Diggs is coming out of nowhere and absolutely playing incredible, making some incredible catches. Kendricks, I'm calling it now, defensive rookie of the year. The guy is phenomenal. He's all over the place.
Bob,
yes,
can I throw something there? My son voted 30,000 times for him this week, nonstop on the fan thing on, I think it's NFL.com, where they have the defensive rookie of the month. Kendricks got 30,000 votes from my address. I won't give it away just in case they want to take the award away from him.
30,000, huh?
Do you believe this kid doesn't work for a living?
It's all good. From there, like I said, this team is very much impressing me. I'm in love with Zimmer. The job he's doing, he's adjusting in game. The last regimes didn't do that. They always said, well, we'll have to watch film on Monday, Tuesday, and see what happened, what we did wrong, and things like that. This is phenomenal what Zimmer's doing with this defense, adjusting mid-game, and not only adjusting, making it work.
I think that there's another difference as well. Rather than us sitting here playing to the quality of our team, or our opponent, we're sitting there saying, screw this, we're playing our game. Okay, this is what they're doing. Let's go out there and beat their ass, because this is what we do. Rather than be forcing, okay, let's prepare for this other team, rather than the other team having to prepare for us.
We're out to win, and we're putting everything forward to win, and not trying to lose. I'm sorry, not trying to not lose.
Exactly.
I was going to say, guys, one of the things that's interesting is we did a Vikings mail call with Pete Mercer tonight. He covered a couple things. I actually posed the question to him about these adjustments and the frustration of fans of, hoping to God that Frazier would make an adjustment at some point in time beyond mid-season. And he talks about what that process is like, because obviously Pete coached in the NFL. He's a linebackers coach for 5 years under Mike Tice. And so he talks about, how that's done, who makes that decision. And one of the things he said it was clear what Zimmer did is he immediately went to a more aggressive blitz scheme. And he said that's what mattered. He said the perfect guy for this is the very guy you're talking about. It's Eric Kendricks. And he said the key for him is it's the hustle. No matter what happens, no matter what guys get in the way, he chases it all the way down the field. It's what everybody's taught from middle school all the way through college and the pros is never give up on a play. And Kendricks is that guy with that high motor you always hear about. He's a perfect complement in the middle to these guys.
Right.
One thing I did notice during the game, I wasn't at the game. I watched on TV like probably 99% of us did. Was every time they showed Zimmer, he was actually talking to the linebackers or talking to the cornerbacks. He was over there in those guys' ears early and often. So I can't remember the last time I've seen that out of a head coach on a Viking squad ever. That he was actually over those guys breaking things down, like, or let's do this. We're going to rock this way, and this is what's going to happen. And it happened.
He every play to him, he's in his head making some kind of adjustment and relaying it to his coaches and his players. And it's phenomenal to see.
Yeah, I'll tell you the one thing that's interesting, guys, is you remember in years past, even when we had the number one run defense forever, we also had the last ranked pass defense, or near the last ranked. And so it still put fear in you. You didn't mind the teams running, but eventually they abandoned it and they went straight to the pass. They would just march down the field. Nice thing here is think about in your mind, when was the last time you were excited to see the defense on the field? You usually just wanted them to get off the field so you could see the offense. Now it's actually fun to watch some defense.
Oh, absolutely. I've always been a defensive fan, and I started watching the Vikings in the 70s with the Purple People it is. I'd much rather watch our D take over a game than the offense. The offense, that's fun. Everybody has fun on the offense scoring. But the defense is where the hard work is. And these guys are not only just knocking teams down, they're knocking players out. They're getting the ball back. We're actually seeing turnovers, sacks, everything. This is phenomenal to see. The defense is setting up the offense to shorten the field for Bridgewater, and it's amazing to see as a fan.
I see the same thing. I'm very excited about what we're seeing here because I really only dominant defenses. I don't know if they're really dominant. Was when Tomlin was here, and before that, you look back when Browner and Studwell and all those guys were here, and prior to that, the 70s. I was a bit young then, so I don't recall that, but. I'm excited about this, and I think you win football games with defense. A lot of the times, obviously, need a decent passing game on offense to win games as well. But the defensive players we have and the age of these players, I'm really excited about the future of this team.
I agree. All right, at this time, let's put our picks in here. Do we all think the Vikings are going to win? I do. I'm going to go 28-17 Minnesota.
Well, the way I look at it, it's interesting because it is a house of horrors in Chicago when we play there, and we have a difficult time a lot of times because that field, they absolutely don't mow it past about July, and that slows everything down for it. But that shouldn't be enough excuse for the Vikings not to go play well. I think their confidence is high, and I'm never one to pick a big victory. I think at any point in time, Cutler can get the job done, but I actually believe the Vikings are going to pace them, and I think it's going to be a 41-13 game.
Wow.
Oh.
All right. Michael?
Olsen, you okay over there? Choking a little bit.
You hear 41 in a Viking score, and you're thinking 41 donut.
41-17.
Yeah, that's
remember, Mike, that's John Fox, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants when they beat us 41-0. I would love to see 41-13 go on his face after he walks off the field.
Right.
All right, so 41-13 from Tom. Mike, since you're on, give us your pick.
I'll go 28-17 is what I think we're going to end up with. I just think that we're still having a hard time crossing that 30-point barrier. I hope it happens this week, but I don't know. It's tough to see.
All right, both you and I have the exact same score. OBM, your call, big guy.
I think it's going to be a little bit closer than you guys are predicting right now. I mean, I would say right now, I think it's going to be 24-20 Vikings. I think we're going to sneak one out of Chicago. We're going to win there. And, Cutler's such a pain in the ass. I mean, he's one of those guys that it just seems for whatever reason when he plays the Vikings, he plays a little bit better than he does against everyone else. Seems like he gets pumped up for this game. So 24-20 Vikings.
All right, Georgia Mike.
All right. And while I was sitting here on mute, I asked my son, he has no idea what you guys have said, and his score was, and I'm going to go with him, said 30-17 Vikings. So he was 2 points off from you guys, but a Vikings victory. He's thinking 30-17. If he picks wrong, he's sleeping in the street.
Is that a unanimous Viking pick for this week?
That's 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, goodness. This is guaranteed lots. Should I re-pick?
Yeah, I go 41-17 Bears. Because I'm sure Arizona Vike girl will be happy.
Oh, I'm sure she likes getting her digs in, and trust me, I like beating the heel of picks over here. Okay, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. As long as we keep winning ball games, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, that concludes Odin's Eye. Now we're going to move on to our next segment. This is where we get to meet and greet our guest this evening, Tom Moore. Tell us where you're from, how you became a Vikings fan, and all the fun stuff about you.
Sure. I was born in Bloomington, and so many years ago, when I was 5 years old, I moved away. So I didn't even know I was a Viking fan until a little bit later in life when my family moved to Houston, and I thought I was an Oilers fan. And my dad said, "You don't want to be an Oilers fan. The Vikings just traded to get the quarterback, Fran Tarkins, who was there when you were born." And so he said, "You need to be a Vikings fan." So that's when I became a Vikings fan deep in the heart of Texas. And no matter where I moved, and I've lived on the East Coast in New York and Maryland and Atlanta, and I've even gone out to San Francisco and lived, I've always remained a Vikings fan. So I always appreciate the fact that my son, who was born in Maryland, is a Baltimore Ravens fan. I don't try to convert him because I understand that loyalty. As long as we're not playing the Ravens, he and I are just fine with that. So my background as far as football, I played all the way through college. I played at FMU, And for those on the board who've heard me talk about it before, I was on the infamous Death Squad. So I did see everything that you guys who have seen the 30 for 30 on ESPN. I saw a lot of that going on. It's painful to watch that because, like anything else, when it happens a little bit of the time, you don't notice how big it is. When you see it all encapsulated in one series, it's kind of tough to take. But all those things did happen, and probably a little bit more that wasn't reported.
That has to be tough going through college and trying to be a college football player with that happening, because you sign on a certain college for their program, and then the Death Squad comes in and basically takes away your college career.
Well, it's interesting because when the death penalty came on, I was pretty much out of eligibility. I had 1 year to go, and I was no great shakes, guys. I was a third string linebacker and special teams player, and the times that I would get in is against teams like TCU, which at the time were terrible. And so you knew you were way ahead of the game because you were in the game actually playing. But we didn't feel that type of heat because we'd been put on probation a couple times because the cheating came out, and then we were slapped on the wrist. And the reason we got the death penalty is we just kept on thumbing our nose at people. We just kept on doing it. And I wasn't a good enough player to participate in it. And if I were, guys, it would have been really hard to turn away some of the things that were offered to these players. But at the time, just like anybody else at 18, 19, 20 years of age, you're arrogant. And for that arrogance, you love all the trappings. I mean, this is a school of 6,600 students. And so we were competing with the Pits at the time, with Dan Marino in the Cotton Bowl. And we should have never been able to compete on a level playing field with a school that small. But you loved it. And so even though you knew things were going on around you, as a player, you become accepting of certain things because you realize, I like being on national TV. I like the attention.
I can't blame you for that.
I was going to ask you, so what did you do with that gold Trans Am that you had?
I didn't get one, but I will tell you, we all did see Eric Dickerson on the one he had. He flaunted it around pretty good. What you'd have in there, which I won't reveal completely because there's no need to do it, but you would have jobs that weren't real that paid a lot of money. Guys that spend a couple hours make $100 an hour back in the 80s. You'd have unusual things like that. And, a lot of it was really about alumni. Alumni is where all the problem starts because you get a couple guys with money and they want to see the program get better. And while they understand they're doing something wrong, they don't think they're doing anything real wrong. And that's when it just starts to snowball, and it got way out of hand. But I will tell you, because of the penalty that SMU got, it took 25 years before the team went back to a minor bowl game. And the NCAA will do anything they can not to give that type of sanction again.
All right, question for you. Those alumni that are paying guys $100 an hour for a couple hours, are they still hiring?
I don't know. They might be. I mean, a lot of them kind of went undercover, but SMU's in Dallas, and it's a big money school. So yeah, those alumni will throw it around, and they'll give people some pretty good jobs if they're talented.
I got to pencil it in for where my kid's going to go in the future. No, kidding.
There you go. Well, we have a nice legacy of cheating because Larry Brown's got the basketball program in trouble now as well. So they were just about to become a top 2010, and now they're ineligible for a lot of the bowl, the postseason appearances.
Oh, tough for college to survive.
Hey, you know what though? But the way you look at it is, we saw holiday bowls and cotton bowls and things like that. A lot of great experiences, and I probably wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah, I guess if I was a player, I agree with you. Through that time, I didn't do college and I didn't do football. I was hockey and baseball, so I get what you're saying. And no, I never saw football.
The strange thing that people don't realize about that whole experience is the actual suspension was 1 year. We took 2, and the reason we took 2 was year 2 they were going to allow us 7 games, all road games, and there were no scholarships. It's going to be student athletes is all it could be. And I was actually there on a track scholarship, so I didn't count as a scholarship athlete for football. And so Forrest Gregg they'd hired to be the coach. He was from SMU. He was at the time was the Packers coach. And they brought him in, and he kind of was going to restore the pride. The problem with college schedules back then, they were made 10 years in advance. And so on our schedule, we had number 1 Notre Dame. We had number 2 Houston, which was in the run and shoot offense. And at some point in time, Forrest Gregg just made the decision, we're going to get killed and embarrassed. Let's just wait till we get a full squad, some home games.
Actually, that makes sense. You're right. There was so far in advance, like you see, like Penn State was playing Pitt or Notre Dame, all these, through 2022, like It's 1997, you know. So I get what you're saying.
But I will tell you guys, I got 1 year of eligibility left, and I'm holding it back. You never know when I'll make a comeback.
You make a comeback? I wouldn't respond to that any further. Best of luck to you. What were they rooting you on there, Tom?
I didn't say a successful comeback. I just said a comeback.
If you make a comeback, trust me, if you get in that squad, I will buy 50-yard line tickets to come watch you play.
Trust me, I'll be going to you as an alumni. Get my money.
I'd tear my ACLs just watching you. Okay. Just from sitting my fat rear end down there.
I'll tell you, you thought you were going to do that. It's funny with those things because you carry more weight than your body's really supposed to be. I was about 225 at the time. I've had about 9 knee surgeries since then because it's just unnatural, and that's what these athletes in the NFL go through as well. The one experience I had, while it was frustrating at the time, it's a fun one to look back on, is, I played scout defense a lot for what was then known as the Southwest Conference. So for the teams that SMU was going to play, and of course I was going against in my freshman year, Eric Dickerson and Craig James. So you could see where you were supposed to be, and it made you appreciate on the field when you see it in the NFL now, as you think, why can't that guy get there? Because the talent in the NFL is so strong, there's always going to be somebody bigger, stronger, faster. So you knew where to be. You just couldn't get there. So too often I was just looking at the back of the numbers, 2 and 9 at the time, he was 19 in college. And you could see, that number in his name, and that's about all you could see, just, fading on you.
So did you try to hang out with Lyle Alzado to get yourself in game shape?
I didn't. Steroids were actually the biggest thing that people were using at the time, starting to test. I didn't do that. I had trouble just keeping the weight on. The craziest thing at SMU was, and maybe other colleges as well, is if you didn't make weight, you had to run, and you had to run the stands of the stadium, and which made no sense because most people were missing weight because they were too heavy. Okay, so I'm sitting here thinking I'm not making weight. I'm being punished by losing more weight running these things. And at some point in time, you get so tired, you think, if I just run off the top of the stadium, nobody's going to miss
me. Hey, Tom, I think OBM has a very good question for you.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, my question for you, Tom, is, when you played Division I, and, I've known people who played Division I, and it's always cool to talk to them and get some of the stories and some of the memories that those guys have, because they played against some elite players. Is there any player that you played against, or any game that you remember that it rings, it's still in your memory, you can remember it like yesterday? Anything that really stood out where you were like, wow, that's just something you're never, ever going to forget, and just something that just kind of, maybe it was a player who blew you away by how talented they were. Maybe it was a game. Maybe it was something you did on the field. I mean, is there something from that experience that to this day you still, cherish and remember?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the one would be in my freshman year. And you got to understand. So here's the circumstances of me playing. So I came in on a track scholarship throwing discus. And because SMU was small enough, they needed people to play on the scout squad. So they came over to the shot put, discus, and hammer throwers and said, anybody who's got any experience in high school football, wants to come over and play scout squads, we'll give you some extra benefits, different type of meal plans, things like that. Special school schedules, which, certainly meant things like music appreciation really did exist, and I really did take it. And so that was kind of unique as well. But that led to, really a lot of special teams play. So for me, even though I didn't play a lot in the game, it was the end of the 1982 season. It was the Cotton Bowl, January 1, 83. We played Pitt. We were playing for the national championship. We won that game 7-3. It was cold. It was raw. I'm going to say it was something like, 18 or 20 degrees in Dallas. So it was miserable, to play the game. But at the end of the game, we did not get, the number 1 ranking because we had tied Arkansas that year. And so we ended up ranked number 2 in that. So it was one of those things we felt like we were a little bit robbed, but you'll never forget that experience. And it was really after the fact because Dan Marino did not play that well as a senior, even though he was a name out there. People didn't know he was going to be anything big in the NFL. So it becomes a bigger legend in your mind when you think later, I played against Dan Marino. But the secret for me, and I'm always honest about it, I never played against Dan Marino. He was on the other side, but he certainly wasn't on special teams.
That's awesome,
again,
man.
The older I get, I may lie about that, but you guys know the truth. There you go.
All right, guys. Tom, anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate you guys having me here. One thing I'll do a little plug if I can for you guys. We got some pretty good guests coming in the future, and I think the importance is all the shows on the Vikings Fans Network that we have on. So I think everybody knows we've got Bud Grant coming in next. I think it's Wednesday, November the 4th. We'll have him in here. We'll talk a little bit about past squads. We'll also talk about future. And then we've got a lot of former Vikings coming in, like Rich Gannon's coming in, Jim Marshall and Bob Lertzema and Carl Eller are coming in together. And then we get a little odd as we get to the end of the year. We're going to have Mike Tyson, the boxer, come in. And so that we tie that in with when we go outside of Viking players or NFL players, we're trying to tie in their experience as being a champion or a fan of the sport, which is why we brought comedian Rob Schneider in to preview the 49er game, because he was a lifelong 49er fan. So, we always look for suggestions from the people out there on the website that they'd like to hear from. We're pretty fearless as far as who we're going to go after. We get some no's, but we get an awful lot of them that turn out to be yes, and we hope to have a good time with it.
Awesome. Charlie, I got one more question for you.
Sure.
From when you started this board to where you are now, is it where you expect it to be? And do you see much bigger things on the horizon? And can you fill us in on some of those?
So when the board was started, I actually wasn't part of starting the board. I mean, it was a group that brought them over. It was a home for us to come to. And so that's where it came on. And then we decided, hey, will somebody do shows like you guys are doing? Will somebody provide content? And the way it started was with Darren Nelson. He was the very first person we talked to. It was intended to be a written interview. And what happened was I said, well, I don't want to take a bunch of notes. So I ended up doing with very, very little broadcasting training. Did a couple classes when I was a freshman in college. It ended up sounding more like a radio interview. And so we decided that was going to be how we branched off. That's how that piece came. I think where you guys are going and where the Horns Up group are going is where we really hoped it would be, to where the members who were lifelong fans, had some talents to share, would actually start to create their own content, their own show, their own following. So I think it's where we would expect it to be. But right now, this growth that you guys are helping to provide, it's really where we want it to be. So I think this site can be as big as we want to. I think you guys might be really surprised how many current and former Vikings come on the site. PR comes on the site from Winter Park all the time, almost every single day, to see what's going on. So the presence is felt, and they very much appreciate the voice of the fans. So I think we're heading in the right direction, but we need guys like you and the rest of the members to try to help us shape that future.
Where do you see it going? Next year, 5 years on the road, or?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with, and Mike can chime in on this as well. A couple of years ago, when we decided to really get involved with the PR group at Winter Park, the goal is we get to camp the first year. We would get to a couple preseason games the next year. We'd be in the new stadium covering this team. Mike and I will be at the Ram game as part of the media, and we will cover that. We'll do the interviews from the locker room as well. So I think we're on track to where we want to be. I would like to see this be twofold. I would love to see this to where we have a piece of it that we're considered, I don't want to say serious media, but those that understand the game and those that try to put the positive spin on what the team is doing. That doesn't mean that we want to candy coat things, because that's not what you guys are doing. It's not what we want to do. But we want to take this from the perspective of we know what we're talking about. But then we also want to have that slant that's just fun. Get a guy come on here, and if they want to have a profanity-laced tirade, let them do it. Okay? I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's the sharing of camaraderie. And what we always want to avoid as we grow in the sport, at some point it's going to go beyond 1,000 members and beyond that. But when it does, we don't want to get that tone that happens to other boards to where somebody has to be the smartest person in the room. There's a lot of points of views, and we can debate. We can have fun doing it. Tell you what, guys, as you think about the site, because when you say our and we, you are part of it. You're helping grow that, and the other members can too. And everybody's got a skill set that they can contribute to, and that's what we want to see them do. And when we get there, the bottom line is we don't all agree. There's always someone in the board who's going to bother us and what have you. But in the end, we all want to see the team do well. We all want to see them in that Super Bowl that we've been waiting forever for. We want to see them win it all. And I think that's what it's all about. And then when we get people dropping by, when you get a Brad Johnson who sponsors the March Madness contest, you want the members to say, damn, that's pretty cool. And that's what we're looking for, of giving people experience and exposures they wouldn't normally get.
Great. All right, gentlemen, let's roll on to the NFC North. We have a couple of games, obviously the Vikings and Bears, which we already talked about. The Lions at the Chiefs and the Packers at the Broncos.
I'll go first here. You know what? Green Bay at Denver. I mean, that's going to be a heck of a game. Denver, great defense. Offensively, I don't know. Peyton Manning, he's struggled at times this year. My gut feeling is Green Bay's going to win that game. They're gonna leave there undefeated. And I think Manning just, from what I've seen about 3 or 4 games this year. He just does not look the same. The other game was it Lions Chiefs? Is that what it was? Lions Chiefs?
Correct.
In Kansas City, I assume.
Yeah.
The Lions. I mean, at this point, you look at the Lions. They're 1-6, and they just, it's funny. Last week after that game, I was talking to a good friend of mine. We were talking about the Vikings and the Lions, and one thing I said to him right after that game ended, I said, why did the Lions not run the football more? And it seems like every time you watch the Lions, they just never run the football enough. I mean, Abdullah looked pretty solid out there, I thought, against the Vikings. He got 8 carries, I think. So it was kind of funny. We were talking about, I said, if I was the Lions GM, Monday morning would have rolled around, I'd have called in the offensive coordinator and said, bye-bye. Thanks for playing. You're out of here. I mean, they should have ran the football a lot more, I thought. But long story short, Lions, Chiefs, I got to go with the Chiefs. I just cannot see. The Lions might be the team this year that we look at the end of the year, and they're going to have, 3-4 Pro Bowlers probably. And they're going to go, 4-12? 3-13? I mean, they are awful right now. So, yeah, Chiefs over the Lions, 1-7. And I'll tell you what, the head coach at the end of the year, may as well buy a plane ticket because he's out of there, I think.
All right, let's go to Tom Moore.
So I'll start with that same game, and I would, I think that the Lions are in a position where they're teetering on disaster. I mean, the firings they had this week on their own staff in mid-season, that's unusual. We used to always scream for those for Leslie Frazier's staff and didn't get that because it is so hard to replace them mid-season. So I think they're in turmoil. I think for the most part they are a team of Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson. Other than that, they're weak in a lot of areas. Chiefs don't look a whole lot better because their injuries, obviously, at running back. But playing in Kansas City, that's a tough road, and Andy Reid knows how to get them together. I say this is the Chiefs, and the Lions will fall to 1-7. And I also agree. I think Jim Caldwell's days are numbered. I was not real impressed with him when he was in Indianapolis. It was all about Peyton Manning there. If you go to the marquee game, I know NBC's got it. It's got to be the late game, I would assume. Actually, it's not. It's night game. Both of these seem really unusual coming off a bye week. So they both should be well rested. I think the Packers are the better team. Peyton Manning certainly looks like a guy who's 1 year past his retirement age. But I'm going to go for a hopeful pick, and I'm going to say the Broncos win this one at home.
All righty. What do you like?
All right. Kansas City and Detroit are both terrible. I can flip a quarter, but I'm going to say Detroit wins just for poops and giggles, just to be different than you guys. I think Stafford's basically Jay Cutler with a better attitude. And I know they're playing in Kansas City. Kansas City should be favored, or actually they're playing over in Wembley, aren't they, this week? Kansas City's got it as a home game, but I think Detroit's going to win the game because I think they're better than what they've been showing out in the field here. I know they got to a quick lead on us. In Kansas City, I don't have any faith whatsoever in Alex Smith and that offense over there. So I'm going to go with Detroit in that game. As far as the Green Bay game, I think Green Bay blows out Denver this week. I'm not going to go 41-17, but I'm going to go 54-3. No, I think Green Bay dominates out there in Denver this week, and it's not even close. I think Peyton Manning will be exposed finally for the fraud that he is now because Father Time's undefeated, and here he is. I think Peyton Manning is done. I think Denver's streak of being undefeated is done as well.
Really? You think Green Bay is going to kill Denver in Denver?
Yes.
Wow.
This game will be over by halftime.
Wow. All right. I'm going to throw out my picks here. I agree with you. I think Detroit has the capability of beating Kansas City, mostly because it's in England. There's no Arrowhead Stadium fans there. I I agree with what you're saying on the talent level of Detroit not being as bad as being perceived on the field. The Green Bay Denver game, I see it under a touchdown.
Really?
Yeah.
Green Bay's defense is better than Denver's. Green Bay's offense is better than Denver's offense.
I think this Denver Green Bay game is going to be a lot closer than people think it's going to be.
I can understand that. I just, I don't know. I just have this feeling this week that this game's going to be over by halftime, and everyone's going to talk about Peyton Manning should retire now. Should they bench him again to bring up all that BS talk again? Green Bay's, they're solid, and I think Peyton Manning is going to be exposed this week. And I kind of hate Green Bay. I hate talking about them. So somebody else talk about that. I hate the Packers so bad. And I hate picking them to win every single week, and I'm right every single week.
Well, let me ask you guys something. You know, Denver's 6-0. Packers are undefeated. What if Manning goes out there and lays an egg this week? Let's just talk hypothetically here for a moment. Let's say he goes out and plays a terrible game. And I'll tell you what, I've seen him play 3 or 4 times, and there are games that they won that they probably should not have won. I mean, they really should probably be 4-2. But hypothetically, if he goes out there and lays an egg, next day, are we talking about a team that's 6-1, maybe making a quarterback change?
It's possible because it's been mentioned before that they wanted to bench Manning when he was ranked number 32.
If they bench Manning, they're out of their damn mind. Even at his age, they're out of their mind. I just think that, for what Denver has, Peyton Manning, if you bench Peyton Manning, you might as well just cut on the same day. You're not going to bench him. I just think that he's finally going to show what he is. It's just, it happens to everyone, all the greats it happens to, and it's happening to Peyton Manning in front of our very eyes right now. I think Denver's defense is kept in there. You say if Peyton lays an egg, as you were talking about before, Peyton's been laying a lot of eggs here this year. He's been terrible. And the defense is the only thing that's kept Denver in these games. If Peyton Manning was a quarterback to the Vikings right now, do you think our record would be any better than it is right now?
No.
I think we might have won that San Francisco game. I think, it's possible we could have one more win, but do I think he's a game changer like he was a couple of years ago? No. Do I think he strikes the fear into his opponents? No. I think he's a completely different player than he was 2 years ago, maybe even last year. I mean, I don't know if you bench a guy. I think it's tough to bench anyone when you're 6-1 and you're, the legend that guy is. So it's one of those things. I mean, they almost lost to the Browns. And I can't remember the other game. Maybe it was the Ravens I saw where a guy dropped a pick 6 that would have been game over on the 20-yard line. So they're 6-0, but I'll tell you what, in my opinion, they could easily be 4-2. Easily be 4-2. And, if he goes out on national TV and lays an egg, and, I think we talked about his passing stats a couple weeks ago that he's near the bottom, which that is not Peyton Manning. He's normally near the top. So, if he goes out and lays an egg, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I think Osweiler's the backup yet. He's a young guy. He's been there for a couple of years, sat behind him. I can't see him making the change, but you never know, I guess. That's why I kind of threw it out there. I was curious to see what you guys thought.
If they bring Osweiler in there, I think Osweiler is one of those guys who's going to start the season going through camp, knowing he's a starter and all that. But if the second they bring Osweiler in there, Peyton will retire. He will.
I got to agree. Peyton's probably on his last year.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bob.
All right. Here's where we go from here. The now infamous upset special. Guys, I've nailed my picks the past 2 weeks. I'm sticking with the Steelers. They've been like my team, like to lose and to win. I think they knock off the Bengals.
Big Ben's back, so.
I like that. I like that pick. Good pick.
Hopefully I go 3-0 here, because that way I can pat myself on the back a little bit more.
I won't be doing any patting for you, Bob.
Wait a minute now. You know who else is going to be 3-0? OBM. Because I am going to go with Cleveland over Arizona.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Write that down. Cleveland over Arizona. Cleveland's due to win. Arizona's struggling a little bit. Come on, it's Cleveland. How can he go wrong with the dog pound, right?
All right, Tom, what are you thinking this week?
Well, I'm going to go no guts, no glory here. I'm not a big believer in the 6-1 record of the Falcons. And, when you look at the Buccaneers, I always like the old adage, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while. Somehow I think Lovie Smith and our old head coach, Leslie Frazier, get it done, and they beat the Falcons at home.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah.
All right, guys, now there's an upset. That would be an upset.
I can see that happening, though.
If he wins that, I'll give him my championship belt.
Tom stole my thunder there a little bit because I picked Tennessee. I picked Cleveland the week before. I picked Cleveland, who brought Denver in overtime. I picked Tennessee to beat Atlanta last week, and Tennessee was with a 3-point game. And Tampa Bay is better than Tennessee. God, I'm just looking at the schedule here. I'm just trying to find a lot of these games.
Gardner, you look at the schedule. You look at the schedule, buddy. Bob, what's your record right now again? Remind me.
Undefeated.
That'd be 2-0. And what's OBM's record? That'd be 2-0. 2-0.
Oh, wait.
TV.
How many more?
Don't bring it up.
How many more undefeated teams are you picking?
Let's review.
Hey, 2-0 is 2-0. Don't be criticizing one. 2-0, baby.
It's like picking the Patriots over the Dolphins this week. Come on.
Yeah, that was a huge upset. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
All right. God, these games are so close this week. It's just, there's not really a big upset, because you got teams like Tennessee playing Houston, New York playing Oakland, Seattle against Dallas. Seattle should win that game. God, maybe I'll just be the jerk and say, you know what, Chicago's going to beat Minnesota.
Jerk.
You cannot do that. You cannot.
Chicago's beating Minnesota this week.
I will beat your ass if you do that right now. You cannot do that.
I did the pick of 30-17 Minnesota winning. Of course, I can't do that right now.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, let's go with Dallas over Seattle then.
Right.
Dallas over. Wow, Matt Castle over Seattle. I like it, buddy.
Man, we're going for it, man. It's we're talking about blind squirrels finding a nut. Hey, trust me, I got both eyes covered right now, just throwing darts.
Well, everyone, that concludes our show. We thank you all for joining us, being a fan, and supporting us. Without you, this is not possible. I'd like to thank our very special guest tonight, Tom Moore. Tom, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. We hope you had a blast with us, and we'll be willing, forcefully, to want to come back.
As long as you guys are paying for the drink.
And we're buying drinks. And once again, I'm going to throw in another shout out to the Minnesota Viking fans in Atlanta. On their Facebook page, we had 70 new views on our show this past week, so I do appreciate that. And I'm getting a ton of friend requests from these people over there, so I really do appreciate these people tuning in and listening. So thank you much.
Very nice. Tom, buying the drinks. I guess you haven't heard that Mike hired interns.
He and I got the opportunity to meet the interns in Vikings. That was a good experience.
Yeah,
we tried to get one of the days.
He sent me his checkbook. It's got T. Moore as the name on it, but yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm throwing checks out everywhere.
I got 2 of those interns in my basement now. One's getting me drinks.
By the way, when you go with your local liquor store, look in the very cheap section of the scotches and whiskeys and look for Tom Moore. Only get it as a sample. I wouldn't drink it. It's like paint thinner. But it exists.
Oh, my God. No.
Serving that for shots next week.
Yeah. Does the winner get a bottle of that? Whoever gets the most mixed right at the end of the year for these upset specials?
No, the loser they have 2 varieties. They have 100 and 120 proof.
that like the Mad Dog 2020 for like, I don't know, Olympic? Yeah. No, my question right down here is like, is dog tear me off?